You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. This song, Anti-Manifesto, needs no real introduction, but I will try to do my best here. This episode is a deluxe episode featuring all of our material that we've ever done about the song Anti-Manifesto, track 1 from How to Clean Everything. This episode has a bit of everything, to be honest. We never really did a structured episode on this song because random pieces just kept falling in our laps, and instead of waiting to release one huge episode, we just kept releasing the pieces as they became available to us. So now, here they all are in one spot. After this introduction, you will hear a short spoken introduction and then a cover sung in French by Matt Comtois, friend of the show. Matt has appeared on this podcast in the Adventures in Zoochosis Part 3, and we also did a short episode together on the song Iteration from October of 2024. I'm delighted to welcome Matt back on the podcast with some more music. After Matt's cover, you will hear what was the original part 1 of this song's episodes from April of 2022, featuring a cover and conversation with Chris Fox from the bands Boss's Daughter and Vampirates from Reno, Nevada. After Chris, you'll hear my conversation that I had with Bob Nanna from Hey Mercedes and Braid. After Chris Fox and Bob Nanna, you'll hear a lo-fi acoustic cover from Seth Gile from the band Arms Aloft. If you haven't heard Arms Aloft, please do yourself a favor and rectify that immediately because they are awesome. Seth was very kind to submit a cover just after the 30th anniversary of How to Clean Everything, and we released his cover on June 5th, 2023. It is a very raw, bedroom-style recording, and I know that you'll love it if you haven't already heard it. After Seth's cover, you'll hear a segment of my conversation with Kristian Basaraba from the Rad Dads podcast. The original episode with Kristian appeared on April 29th, 2023, so if you like our short section here, go check out that one and go listen to the Rad Dads podcast, who have been friends of this show ever since we began. After Kristian's segment, you'll hear a piano cover and conversation with Uli Sailor from Germany. If you like what you hear, check out Uli's Punk Rock Piano EP, which features several more covers you'll know and love. And then after Uli, you'll hear my conversation about Anti-Manifesto with the actor Ryan O'Nan. Ryan is an actor who has appeared in the TV shows Ray Donovan, Fargo, Queen of the South, Big Sky, and much more. And Ryan also has a novel out called Winders. This is part of a larger conversation I had with Ryan from April 15th, 2022, and that whole conversation was really enjoyable as well, so go check out the full thing if you like what we talk about on this one. And then to close it out, you'll hear Steve and I talk about Anti-Manifesto a little bit from our How to Clean Everything 30th anniversary episode from May 31st, 2023. If you ever want to get in touch, you can do so at propagandapod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening.
Hey, Greg. Hey, Steve. Anti-Manifesto. Why was it so hard to get this one on the books? It's objectively one of their easier songs to play and sing, unless you're trying too hard. And it's especially easy the way I play it. But after countless nights of wandering aimlessly in the city, I figured it out. This song means so much to so many people. For loads of fans, me included, this was the entry point into the props. So, you don't want to fuck that one up. Last note in this already long voicemail. As a francophone coming up, I didn't understand much of the lyrics of the bands I chose to listen to. So, I guess in these translated covers, somewhere in my heart, I'm hoping that one or two francophone fans of the band might catch a few things they missed in the English versions. Maybe you understand the whole song for the first time. Love you guys. Make sure you wear something warm if you go out.
Soyez témoins d'une paire de complices. Soyez témoins d'une paire léthargique, inconsciente. Pas de sourcils froncés, questionnants, complaisants, complétant leur tâche. sans aucune question. Considérez cette critique un crétin posant sur des lauriers complètement inventés, des acrobaties de mots exécutés avec un harnais au-dessus d'un filet. Je suis tellement plein de merde, mais je resterai jusqu'à ce que ma conscience de soi s'efface, jusqu'à ce que je vainque le but servi par cette plateforme que vous m'avez créée, que vous m'avez créée. Danser, rien jouer, ignorer le message dans mes mots. Semble que nous sommes ici que pour divertir. Une rébellion taillée sur mesure. Je refuse d'en être la bande sonore pendant qu'on divertit. On a la merde jusqu'aux genoux. On a la merde jusqu'au cou.
You're listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. On this episode, Greg and a few great guests discuss Anti-Manifesto, track 1 on How to Clean Everything. This episode is part 1 for Anti-Manifesto and features 2 different conversations. The first is Greg in conversation with Chris Fox of the band Boss's Daughter. Chris is a devoted listener of the podcast and reached out to Greg some time back with interest to record a cover version of the tune, and Greg nabbed him for a conversation about his love of propaganda and his adaptation of the song. The second conversation is with Greg and Bob Nanna. You may remember Bob from bands like Braid, Hey Mercedes, and Friction. Bob and Greg talk about the 90s, loving How to Clean Everything, and songwriting. This is a super fun part 1, so let's kick it off. And Greg and I will catch you for part 2 in the near future. You can find the timestamps in the show as usual, and thank you for listening.
Rebellion cut to fit. Well, I refuse to be the soundtrack to it. We entertain, we're still knee deep in shit. Well, there's something wrong inside. We played it safe, enjoyed the ride. You won't like this, but I have something to confide. We strive for something more than a faded sticker on a skateboard. Rain on your parade, we're out the door. And I don't even care any fucking more. Unconscious, no browse for a question, complacent, completing the task. No questions asked. refuse to be the soundtrack to it. We entertain, we're still knee deep in shit. In shit. And we're so full of it.
Chris Fox, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm delighted to have you here, Chris. I'm wondering if you can just spend a moment and introduce yourself a little bit to the audience, however you see fit.
Yeah, my name is Chris Fox. I play guitar in a band called Vampirates and a band called Boss's Daughter, amongst other bands as well. I've been a musician since I was 12. Been playing shows ever since then, and I'm 37 now. Yeah, I'm from Reno, Nevada.
Home of 7 Seconds.
That's right. That's right. Just got back together and they're touring again, which is really exciting.
Yeah, they sure are. They were supposed to be here in Buffalo with Circle Jerks about a week and a half ago, but it was one of the shows where they had to drop off because of illness, I believe.
Yeah.
So I will never see 7 Seconds in my entire life, I'm pretty sure.
Hopefully I can see them again for you.
Hopefully, and I'll live vicariously through you. But yeah, awesome. Reno, great. Well, Chris, you mentioned you started playing at 12. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Maybe how you got into music and all that stuff. Just tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. So my dad was a musician, or is a musician, and so there was always guitars around the house and stuff. And at some point, a neighbor kid came over and showed me how to play "Come As You Are" on my dad's acoustic guitar,
I learned that one too.
and that was kind of it. I was like, "Oh, you can play songs that you've heard before,
Yeah.
just like that." And so that was kind of it. And Nirvana was kind of like the entry point into playing guitar for me. And then I started taking lessons, and I met my friend Dave Massoud, who plays drums in Vampirates, at around 12 years old. And we started our first band and played our first show.
Chris, you're on the Propaganda podcast here. How did you find Propaganda and come to care about their work?
It must have been, for me, it was Fat 3, the physical fatness one.
What song is on that one? I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's got the cover of True, yeah. That was the first Fat comp that I got. I got it shortly after seeing Offspring with Good Riddance on the Ixnay on the Ombre tour, when Good Riddance was touring on A Comprehensive Guide. And so that was my entryway into Fat Records, and picked up the comp, and then slowly, or quickly actually, moved through the rest of the compilations and got Fat 1, which is where I found Anti-Manifesto. And that was kind of it. They stuck out for sure as a band that seemed to be saying something a little bit more than the rest of the bands, like My Pants Are Falling Down or whatever.
What was the first full-length record for Propaganda that you kind of got into?
Let's see. The first one that I bought was definitely Today's Empires, but friends had the first 2 records that I heard in the car or skateboarding or any situation like that, where there's just music on, and somebody put on the first 2 records at some point. So I heard those records way before I got Today's Empires, but I didn't actually own them until after the fact.
Nice. Okay. Well, Chris, Keith and I have been making this podcast now for, 22 months, I think. And I'm wondering if I found you or if you found me. How did we get to chatting? Because we've been on like Instagram DMs now for a long, long time, it feels like. And I can't remember how that started. If you do, please refresh my memory.
I've been listening since first episode. I don't really know how I found it. Maybe Propaganda posted about it or something.
Yeah, Chris posted about it on Patreon, and then I think he posted one tweet about it as well. And then I think Todd shared a couple things on Instagram early on that were super helpful for us.
Maybe that's how I found it. But yeah, from the first episode, I've been listening and really, really enjoyed the show. You guys, the way that you research each song and like really point out to me the things that I've missed lyrically. Because I've always, as a guitar player, I've always just been drawn to the music. You know, the thing that he's kind of pointing out in Anti-Manifesto is just I'm kind of that guy. But
nice. Yeah, well, and as you know, the things that we say oftentimes are speculation. Like recently when Chris talked about Tartuffe on his Patreon, and I had speculated that "We Came Here to Rock" was a Saxon reference, and Chris said on his Patreon that is 100% false and incorrect. So, we speculate here to the best of our ability, but
Right.
yeah, it's been a good journey. We both feel really lucky and fortunate to have been making this, and it's just been awesome chatting with you for a long time about the show, and it's been a lot of fun because at some point you shared with me that you had covered Anti-Manifesto, and so I know that you've done a couple of versions of it now, but you shared one with me way back when.
Rebellion cut to fit. I refuse to be the soundtrack to it. We entertain, but still knee deep in shit.
And tell me a little bit about that first go around with covering that tune, and then kind of why you decided to do that.
Yeah. So that was, man, that must have been something around a decade ago. I was just kind of getting into learning how to record stuff and sort of getting comfortable playing like solo acoustic music by myself, and learning how to sing properly. Because in Vampires we just yell. We're just a yelling band. We never really tried to hit melodies or properly sing or anything. And so I was just kind of trying to dabble into that world. And Anti-Manifesto was one of the songs that I could actually play on guitar because their Propaganda's guitar parts are just so insane. They're so out there. So that one seemed accessible to me, and lyrically it somewhat made sense to me, as opposed to some of their other tunes that really take some deep dives to get into.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So that's kind of how I started in that one, and it was really just kind of I never really meant to put it out there or anything. It was just kind of like a testing ground for me to learn how to record and learn how to sing and stuff.
Awesome. Well, whenever you shared that with me, I really liked it. And even though I was 10 years old, I was like, hey, I would totally put this in the episode for the song. And you were like, I'm interested, but you balked at my idea and then you decided to redo the entire thing. So why did you decide to go through all of that instead of just giving me the original version that you already had done?
Well, I've got a lot better gear for recording nowadays, and I've learned a lot more about tracking and how to properly layer stuff and record to a click track and things of that nature. So yeah, I just kind of like dove back into it and started recording it, and I kind of just went with like I didn't want to just straight up replicate the original, so I was kind of aiming for more of an acoustic sound to kind of just work as like a solo piece, like just myself. However, my friend Dave recently got some recording interface as well. So I sent him the tracks after I had pretty much finished the song and was like, hey, you want to put some drums on this? And usually you like to do the drums first. So tracking the drums to my existing track that kind of wavers around the click track a little bit, I'm sure was a bit of a challenge for Dave, but he did a great job.
So there's two of you on this. So Dave's on drums and then you're on everything else?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I love the fact that you already said that the song that your version is not like an exact replica of the original, because I'm hearing some like Americana punk. I'm hearing a lot of acoustic. You've got these like kazoo almost sound effects in there here and there. So you've got some like Easter eggs in there. And, people will have just heard the song before you and I started talking. And I'm wondering if you can like tell people like with discerning ears what they may pick up if they listen closely.
Yeah. So on the part you're talking about that sounds like a kazoo, I kind of just put some synthesized placeholders in for the harmonic part where it breaks to the guitar harmonic. And then I decided, I could like play trumpet and trombone on those parts. I think maybe it's just trombone. So I played trombone for those notes as well, and then I just left the synth in as well. So it's like a keyboard and a trombone mixed for the harmonic section.
That was so mind-blowing. I was like, this sounds so crazy. I can't even describe what this is. So I'm glad to hear you just tell me what it is, because I was like, I listened to it like 3 times, like, I don't know what's going on here. This is wild.
And then let's see, another little Easter egg in the tune, where he goes, by the way, I stole this riff.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure you guys have figured out what that riff is. I don't know what it is. But yeah, so every time I finish Anti-Manifesto or listen to it, I always hear the next song. What is it? I always hear the intro riff, that I always hear that riff in my head. So I was like, I'm just gonna put that riff in there for the by the way I stole this riff.
Awesome. So that's a part from Head, Chester, Foot into the Anti-Manifesto part.
Yeah. So that's the riff that I stole.
Oh my God, Chris, I love it so much. In the drums, there are parts where, you start off with this kind of like swingy Americana punk feel. So it doesn't start off with the fast stuff, but then you throw in some fast stuff later, but you have these like bursts of double time drums, but for very short periods of time. Then they come back way later. What kind of decisions did your drummer friend have to make in order to make this work for you?
So he sent me a few tracks, initially trying to get some levels right and stuff. And we were listening back and trying to figure out what was going to work. And I had sort of done a different strumming pattern through the fast part where Jord is like just ripping through the verse. My strumming pattern was a little different. And so when Dave tried to play fast through that part, it didn't quite match up correctly. And so I was like, you know what, just play the slow beat through there. And that'll be our artistic liberty or whatever. And it seemed to work out. And otherwise he sort of emulated Jord's patterns, like how it picks up for the right before the I don't even care any fucking more line, that little fast burst of lines there. But yeah, we just kind of felt it out and made the parts fit kind of to what I had already recorded.
Well, I love the fact that you changed some stuff up, because every time you do something a little different than the original, my ears would be like, oh, that's different. And oh, that's neat. So I love the fact that, even though there's this song that people have heard, a million times at this point, you just switch up these little things and then it becomes something brand new, which is why, like, I think about the editing process of like writing songs or writing stories or writing books. The editing process could almost never end. And you can change stuff infinity amount of times. And then, it becomes something entirely different. So there are so many little decisions that you can change on a song like this, which is so ingrained in people's minds, that just makes it something really different, with not that much rearranging. So I love that about songs, and the fact that you all picked up on a couple of things where you could just kind of move it around, where it just becomes something, something new that catches the attention. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think some of those little accidents kind of happen initially when I was doing the guitar tracks to kind of sketch out the whole track. I didn't listen to the original, and so I probably played some parts wrong. Like I think I played what is it? It must be a B. No, I think he's playing a B and I played an A chord on the intro section. But then when I was doing the bass, I actually went back and listened to what John had played and kind of tracked more like what he had played. And I was like, oh, those guitars are wrong. Whatever. The bass is correct, but the guitars are,
That I love it. I love that. Well, let's talk a little bit about the original, unless you have any other like details or any like, memories from the recording process that you wish to share about the cover that everybody just heard.
I think that's pretty much it.
And so, okay, let's talk about the original. What are your favorite parts about the lyrics?
Absolutely. Let's see. Some of the stuff that sticks out to me immediately looking at the lyrics. Obviously, where's the line? We stand for something more than a faded sticker on a skateboard.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of lyric just kind of sticks to me in that, like, a lot of punk bands are, not throwaway, but just aren't really like trying to like make a big change or make you think with what they're saying. And Propaganda always kind of was like, no, we're gonna make you think a little bit here. So that line always stuck out for sure.
Yeah, I always think about like a sticker that would have like an anarchy symbol or something like that on the bottom of a skateboard that like somebody's just like grinding on like down a rail. And I'm like, okay, well, you got this thing where somebody is like, skateboarding over the top of like one of those like parking things at the edge of a parking lot so you don't drive forward too far. And then just having the sticker just get ripped up over and over and then being like anarchy. And then it's just like becomes like a buzzword catchphrase instead of something that actually inspires somebody to, do something positive to make the world a slightly better place,
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful example. Let's see here. I mean, the opening lines, dance and laugh and play, ignore the message we convey. It seems like that's something that they had battled with in all of their early touring, like maybe before this record had even come out, was just like standing in front of a crowd who just doesn't really give a shit other than like to punch each other in the pit or whatever. And they're kind of just like, but wait a minute, we're like saying some real stuff here. Like,
oh yeah,
we go to the merch table and read a book.
And like I think about I was on Twitter a few months ago, and one of those like people on Twitter who like ask a question with the sole purpose of going viral.
Right.
They asked him, I was like, what is the best opening lyric of all time? And I wrote dance and laugh and play. And I think I got like 50 likes on Twitter, which is like huge.
Yeah.
And, but like, it was so funny because so many people knew exactly what it was. So it's become a recognizable opening line, especially for a debut record. So it's pretty cool in that regard as well. The fact that like, it's 27 years old or 29 years old at this point, and it's still recognizable to this day, and it's so symbolic of a certain time and place within music. It's really cool.
Absolutely. I think that the first Fat compilation also is a factor as to why people really know that song and that line too right off the bat, because it was the first track on that as well. So people are just used to it opening records.
Yeah. What about the performance stands out to you? Are there any like musical aspects or vocal delivery portions that really just strike you and stick with you as being like, whoa, that's so cool?
I mean, the by the way I stole this riff thing is pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
Never heard that in a song before. just being so like honest about it. Like, yeah, we stole this and it fits in our song too. And yeah, just Chris's guitar playing. It's so fast and tight, and it's always been that way. It's just proof that he's always been the best.
I love it. What does and what is the term or the phrase anti-manifesto mean to you? Whenever I say that term, what does that mean for Chris Fox?
I always just keep sticking to the stand for something more than a faded sticker on a skateboard line. Like I can picture, I probably have seen one of my band's stickers fading on a skateboard, and it just inspires me to remember, like, maybe write something of value next time you're writing a song, and not just sing about day drinking or, not that those things don't have merit, but
sure.
But, just maybe think a little bit more about what you're trying to say. And I think that's kind of what it means to me.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining me for a chat about your cover and telling me about the process of creating that and a little bit of fun information that we uncovered here with some of those sounds that people will hear. I appreciate your energy for going through the process of making that cover. It meant a ton to both Keith and myself. And, I hope some people out there listening will get to check out your band and enjoy what they hear.
Thank you. I just want to throw one more thing in there.
Go for it.
I wanted to thank my friend Cameron at the studio Puss Cavern, who plays in the band Add a Lemon, because he mixed and mastered the track for us.
Awesome. Fabulous. I love it. Give credit where credit's due. And who is the drummer on that again? Dave
Massoud from the band Vampirates.
Awesome. Well, Chris Fox, thank you so much for joining me for a chat on Anti-Manifesto on Unscripted Moments. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Greg.
Hi, I'm calling with some comments on Anti-Manifesto. I've previously talked about Let's Talk More Rock as being like this big turning point in my life, but thanks to your podcast, I went back and gave How to Clean Everything kind of an honest reappraisal, and there were 3 or 4 songs that were big songs in changing my mind and shaping my worldview, and one of those was Anti-Manifesto. I mean, the song just rocks, first of all, but there were 2 lines that I remember really sticking out to me as I was, walking around town with my earphones on, probably listening on a Discman or Walkman or something to Anti-Manifesto in my teenage years. I remember specifically the lines, we strive for something more than to be a faded sticker on a skateboard, and also a rebellion cut to fit. I refuse to be the soundtrack to it. Those really got me thinking, and they got me thinking about what my teenage rebellion was all about. Why was I so drawn to punk and skateboarding and all of these things? And if this band who were kind of figureheads to me at that time in that movement were saying something like this, I had to rethink what my rebellion was all about. So that was a point where I first started thinking about, well, what am I rebelling against and why? And is this just to be, offensive for offensive's sake, or is there actually meaning behind what this movement is all about, this punk rock?
Talk some sense into the woman. We will be back.
Loveline will be right back when we're damn good and ready.
Hey, this is Josh Siegel from Thousand Oaks, California. Long-time listener, second-time caller, just calling to say that the song Anti-Manifesto makes me think of listening to Loveline on KROQ as a teenager back in the 90s. They used the first 10 to 15 seconds of this song as a segue into and out of commercials. So I can't help but to think back to those days growing up as a teenager, listening to crazy people call in and hearing some of my favorite bands on as guests. So yeah, keep up the great job, guys. Love the show. Thanks, bye.
Whenever John's ready. Whenever John's ready. Look at that.
Sorry I had to take my shirt off.
Don't look to him for an example of a vegan diet.
Yeah. Don't diss him either or he'll kick your ass.
He's a fucking mean fucker. Meanest skinhead I've ever met.
Something more than a face sticker on a skateboard. in a compass. Witness despair, lethargic, unconscious, no bows for the question, no place to completely venture. No questions asked. Consider this critic a critic, resting on morals completely invented. Word acrobatics for fucked with a varnish and I'm so full of shit. But I will remain till the self-awareness fades. Till I don't think the purpose that is so much.
Bob, Nanna, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor.
I am delighted to have you here, Bob. Can you just spend a moment, maybe offer, like, for the listeners out there, we have listeners all over the world, maybe a potted bio of yourself, maybe some overview of some of your bands, maybe years of activity, things like that, whatever springs to mind.
Sure. I played in a lot of bands and played a lot of shows. Basically been touring and playing shows nonstop since about 92. And the major bands I was in were Friction, and then Braid, and then Hey Mercedes, and then Lifted Bells. And City on Film was a solo thing that I did for a while. Now I'm still doing solo stuff, but under my name. And, you know, all the other bands are sort of on hiatus, some permanent, some maybe not. But yeah, still going at it, doing some touring this year, and actually had a meet. This is my cat.
Yeah, I love the cat from your music video too. At the time, over the course of 2020, I loved that music video.
Yeah, well, my cat likes to just get involved with everything, get in the way, get on camera. Like, I think she hears me talking and thinks I'm talking to her. Most of the time, I am.
Yeah.
To her credit, but like, yeah. So anyway, still, I'm doing some touring this year solo, and last night I actually kind of started a new band. So
nice. I know that Braid coming back several years back was a huge thing for tons of people, myself included. I'm wondering if you're, as the world is starting to expand again, are you thinking about bringing back any of these bands at all?
Definitely open to it.
Nice.
We're all kind of, older and have our own sort of lives and families to deal with. All I have really is this cat here who's looking at me longingly. But so it's a little harder to get together and practice and get our schedules all aligned. But I'd say chances are very good.
Awesome.
One, or if not all of those bands to at least play more shows, if not record new stuff. But
nice. My introduction to you actually came post Braid. It was Hey Mercedes, when Hey Mercedes was signing to Vagrant, and I saw Hey Mercedes open for Saves the Day and Thursday at the House of Blues in Chicago. My friends and I grew up in St. Louis, so we drove like 100 miles an hour up I-55 and in a Chevy Suburban, and went to that show, and I was like right on the barricade. So that was the first time I ever got to see you and like Damon and everything. So it was an awesome show, and it's a great memory for me. So it's really, really cool that you're doing this with me. I just love experiences like this where years later I can connect with all these musicians that have meant something to me throughout my life. So I just wanted to let you know that was like my favorite thing. But my first Braid, my first hearing, my first record that I have of yours was that Braid Get Up Kids 7-inch that you all did from years ago, because I grew up in Missouri and the Get Up Kids were huge there. So I came across that, but I think I may have paid more attention to the Get Up Kids side until I found Hey Mercedes, and then I dug back into that 7-inch and realized what I was missing. So that's just kind of my little origin for some of your work. But
that's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, your recorded output on Discogs, I was looking at earlier, dates to the early 90s. The same years that Propaganda, the band that we're here to discuss, begins to emerge on the radar of the punk scene as well. So there's sort of like a time and place contemporary of yours in a lot of ways. And I'm wondering how Propaganda originally came onto your radar as a person who is just a fan of music in general.
Well, one thing I noticed actually in preparation for this podcast was I had no idea that they started in 1986.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness! Like they must have been pretty young. I mean, I assume, like you said, that they sort of came up around the same time. I mean, the record that I got into them is their first record, right? How to Clean Everything, and that was 93 or 93. So, you know, it's wild to think they existed for a long time, even before that record came out. Yeah. But around that time, 93, 94, I was playing in the band Friction, playing drums in the band Friction, and was relatively new to playing music in that sort of capacity, and touring and all that stuff. But I had always, and Friction wasn't necessarily, I mean, you could maybe say we were a punk band, but maybe just an ethos more than sound.
I would categorize it as a punk band. I listened to Blurred and Six this morning. I was like, oh yeah, this is punk rock for sure.
Great. I'm glad you thought so.
Yeah.
But I definitely was influenced by punk rock. I mean, my sort of musical interest started with like top 40 stuff, new wave, then got into sort of metal, and then landed on punk, which is where I felt the most welcomed in a weird, and I could say that, honestly, because all of those other sort of genres weren't particularly welcoming, in that you needed to be, I don't know, a virtuoso on guitar, or you needed to have a certain look, or be able to, prance a certain way on stage in front of a camera, which I was not comfortable with. So punk was something that really appealed to me, because it was just sort of like scrappy people like me playing their instruments, sometimes not great, but at least like giving it a shot, and wanting to like express themselves or express what they wanted to say. So when Propaganda came to my attention, I've always called them Propaganda. So
that's
I'm sorry
totally fine.
If I say that.
Say it however you say it.
I'll try and say it correctly, but like I said, I've said it that way for a long time, so I might slip back. But Friction was on tour. We did 2 big tours while we were a band, and this was 94. This particular story. So I was 19, and we played with Propaganda at a place, I looked it up here, the Bearville Fire Company in Leola, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
July 1st, 1994. And the other bands that played were Policy of Three, Shotmaker, who's another great Canadian band, and Rail, which was a band, I think they were from Richmond, maybe. But I think I had heard of them, so I was excited to play the show, but I hadn't really listened to them. And then, we all hung out, Friction and them, and then played the show. And afterwards, I got the cassettes, actually. I got the How to Clean Everything cassette and listened to it nonstop, because I was so impressed by it. And it admittedly, it's a little heavier than the stuff I was listening to at the time, but I just was so impressed by the lyricism and the music, and the talk about virtuoso guitars. I mean, it's just like fantastic. And the fact that it was only 3 of them, which was very much like Friction. Friction was a 3-piece as well. I just loved it, and I made sure to play it for as many people as possible, that cassette. And I remember doing just that. Like, at the time I was going to school in Champaign, Illinois, but my parents were in Chicago. So there was a lot of like road trips back and forth. It's like 2.5 hours or something like that. So I would listen to that on the way back and forth. Me and this other guy who was in Braid when we started, this guy Pete, we just would listen to it all day long, or all trip long. Yeah.
Did you watch them at that show in Pennsylvania? Like, did you see the show too?
Yeah.
What do you remember about that? Because I love these memories to like sort of document the story of this band, dating back all the way so many years ago that a lot of people may have missed, you know?
Yeah, I remember it really well. I was watching them from the side of the stage. It wasn't really a stage. It was like a fire, like literally like a firehouse, but I think it was just this sort of like hall that they rented out for the show. And I remember watching the drummer the most, and the singer Chris, right? I remember him standing kind of still while he played, and then I remember John moving more, jumping around a little bit, and then the drummer was just a maniac. Jord.
Yeah, Jord.
Yeah, that's right. But what happened? But I remember this because he broke his kick drum pedal in the middle of the set.
Nice.
So I'm like, oh god! Like, so I ran and I got mine and let him use it, and then he broke mine.
Oh.
He was like, oh fuck, I'm so sorry. And it's like,
oh my god,
you are a monster, man.
Did you guys get to hang out at all or have any conversations or do anything fun together when your paths crossed at that show? What was that like?
It was great. And you know, when we were hanging out, it was before I think I had even heard any of their music. The promoter, I don't remember his name, but I remember very specifically his job, because I thought it was the coolest job ever. He worked for the Postal Service or some faction of like a shipping company where he had to decipher sloppily written addresses that the machine didn't recognize or something like that. I was like, what a cool job. That was the coolest job ever. How do I get that job? That's awesome. But anyway, we sort of all arrived at that show, Friction and Propaganda, around the same time, kind of early, and maybe loaded in, and then we just had like all day to hang out, and we ended up playing volleyball, and I'm not sure why, but I think it might have been the he lived near a park, this promoter, and we just sort of went over there, took a walk, and hung out and talked, and then played volleyball. But John, I know John didn't come. It was just Chris and Jord and the three of us, Friction, and the promoter. I didn't speak one word to John. Like, he was, I think he was like sitting and reading or writing or something like that. He was not into volleyball.
He was doing his thing.
I guess so, but I didn't, whatever. I didn't know anything about the band or him or anybody. But we had such a fun day, like just playing volleyball, goofing off, being stupid. And then thus when the show happened, it was like, I don't know, like the fun culmination of our fun day together. And even on stage, like Chris mentioned about us playing volleyball and how he thought like our bass player Scott was like cheating or not. I don't know, it was like really fun. And I remember the other thing I remember from that show is him talking a lot between songs.
Yeah. And
one was about how one part was, I don't know, I was really enraptured by the performance. He was saying that he was, critical of the Canadian government and, had all these problems, but yet was like helping them out because he was buying so much liquor or like buying beer and stuff. And so like he had just explained that it was a sort of a wake up call to, I suppose, stop drinking or maybe stop drinking so much. But yeah, because all in Canada, all of the, all is government
liquor board.
Controlled. Yeah. But yeah, that was one thing. I mean, I know he talked about veganism too, which was great. I mean, at the time I wasn't vegetarian, but in '95 I became vegetarian and still am, and vegan now too. But I don't know. I was really just blown away. I'm this, sort of young kid on tour, Yeah.
Amazing.
And they, it was their first, maybe that was their first tour. I'm not sure, but it was definitely their first record. So like, it was a cool, special time for everybody.
Awesome. Being a part of the very vibrant Chicago music scene over the years, I'm wondering if they've ever, if you've ever seen them again, or if that was a standalone experience for you. Do you have any other times when you've seen them live or come across them in your, 30 years of being in the biz?
No, I haven't seen them. I haven't seen them since that time. I've heard the records still, and I have befriended a lot of people that are massive fans. But no, I just never, I think I was too busy doing my own touring and stuff.
Sure.
I really didn't see many shows. So the only time I would have seen them is if I was on a show with them, I think would have been the thing.
So having that formative experience with them from the very beginning of their career, they've had a lot of career arc, many changes throughout the years. I'm wondering how you feel about their progression as a band throughout the years, just any general observations you may have about that.
Yeah. I don't want to seem super controversial.
Sure.
But I never connected with a Propaganda record the way I connect the way I connected with that first one. Like that first one I could listen to start to finish, and it just brings me such good memories and just excitement and energy. And I don't know why, but none of the I don't dislike them. I like them. They just don't have the same punch that first record did.
What's really interesting is we talk about this on the show a lot, how the first couple of records have the very particular sound, and then they kind of got heavier with Today's Empires and went through some years where it was very, very heavy. But their most recent record, Victory Lap, sort of is like a return to the more melodic styles. Yeah. So whenever people say things like you did to me, I'm like, oh, maybe you should revisit Victory Lap a little harder, because it's sort of like a nice little cyclical arc where they do have the shreddy stuff, but there's so much more of that early return to insanely catchy melodies and things like that, like that you might recognize from the first couple of records. So there's my recommendation for you for today.
Well, great.
So, you chose the opening track for How to Clean Everything. You've mentioned your feeling about the record in general. And I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about why you chose Anti-Manifesto as the song from the list that I sent you for, what episode to appear on for the podcast. Yeah. What is it about this particular song in general that jumps out at you?
Well, it's such an amazing, it's funny because they're so self-aware on this record, because it's the first song. It's their first album, and it's called Anti-Manifesto, and it literally reads like a manifesto, which I think they probably have stuck to for all of these years. You know what I mean? Everything that he talks about in it. So that's why I chose it. It's the one that, I don't know, whatever, it starts the record. So it started my journey into the band and that record. And it's interesting that you talk about, the first few records and Victory Lap being like melodic and catchy. This song is very catchy and has like hooks and has like lyrics that are I don't know, that like are sort of poignant and deep. And that's probably, I'd probably get slapped upside the head maybe, but like it's true, like there's certain lyrics in this particular song are just awesome, like well done, and they're not banging you over the head political or barking orders or something like that. They're like really attempting to connect with the listener on a real deep emotional level, if I could bring that word into it, but with a wink and like some finesse and just skill.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned how self-aware it is, because there's a lyric in the song that is literally, I am so full of shit. That is a lyric in the song, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like it's, we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of thoughts, but at the end of the day, we're just like full of shit, just like anybody else. And, it's just that realization of, wow, maybe I'm really not that important. You know what I mean? And so I'm wondering if you can like talk about any particular lines that like jump out at you, or if there are any like particular lyrics where you're like, man, that is just like amazing. I love that. Cause you're a lyricist yourself. So like you take a lot of, pride in your craft. And I'm wondering if you have any comments on any of the particular lines in this one.
Yeah. It's funny, the lyric where he says word acrobatics performed with both harness and net, because there are a lot of word acrobatics happening in the song that I love it. I love when I write lyrics, a lot of times I'm thinking about what I want to say, but also thinking about how can that sound good, right? How will that be kind of a cool turn of phrase, or how, what are the, like even like what vowel sound will I need to use for this particular lyric or thought? And so like, even just reading along the lyrics with the song, it's complicated. Like it's a complicated bunch of lyrics. It's so funny because when I was reading, I was like, consider this critic a cretin. And I was like, that's a really cool line. And then like 2 lines later, it's like word acrobatics. And it's like, so it's like so self-aware.
Yeah.
That it's just, I find so brilliant. I think, and then, when the other line that is just so cool is when he says, a sum of our parts and I've never laughed harder, a song in our hearts and I've never laughed harder. And it doesn't really matter because nothing's ever felt as right as this. Like like fuck yeah. Like so I was just, that's the sort of thing where you're just like, oh my God, I don't know. I want to play music like this, It just is a real like call to arms, I thought.
I love it. As a multi-instrumentalist yourself, having played drums and guitars and vocals and bands, I obviously love their musical performances, but is there any like particular part of their performance of this song that really strikes you as being like, whoa, that was really great?
The guitar work is insane.
Yeah.
And, I love breaks in songs. Like Friction did it all the time. Braid and Hey Mercedes, we did it all the time. Lifted Bells did it because it wakes you up. Like if you're listening to it or watching the band play and they just nail like a quick break.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Can't write music without those breaks.
Nice.
And this song is chock full of them. Just cool little breaks. And sometimes there's little riffs in between. Sometimes there's not. It just keeps you awake and invested in the song. You know what I mean? That's why I love that aspect of it. The other thing is, it's funny that there's a song on the record called Ska Sucks.
Yeah.
Because there's like, the sort of, there is that sort of upstroke riff that comes back.
Yeah.
Which is, it's kind of ska.
Yeah.
So it's fun. And that part I thought, even when I was first hearing the record, being like, oh, is this going to be a ska song? But no, it's not. And it just, I feel like it goes through a bunch of different genres just in this one song. But yeah, it's cool.
I love that you pointed out the little sort of almost ska part, because it's one of the, it's so unexpected whenever you think about like the tempo and the pace and the speed of this song. And then it just throws you in there. So I love that you pointed that out. That's really cool. You picked a John Samson era song, which, you mentioned this was like a very time and place record for you that just kind of hit you at like a really important time in your life. And when I dug into your Bandcamp, I found your cover of the Weaker Thans, This Is a Fire Door, Never Leave Open.
Headlights race towards the corner of the dining room and half illuminate a face before they disappear. You breathe in 40 years of failing to describe a feeling. I breathe out smoke against the window, trace the letters of your name. Our letters sound the same, full of all our changing. It isn't change at all straight line circles sometime. You said somewhere there's a box full of replacement parts too. All the tenderness we've broken or let rust away. Somewhere sympathy is more than just a way of leaving. Somewhere someone says I'm sorry. Someone's making plans to stay. So tell me it's okay. Tell me anything or show me there's a pull unsaleable that will lead you there from the dark alone to benevolence that you've never known or you knew when you were 4 and can't remember. Where a small night tears up the sloppy seams and the silence knows what your silence means and your metaphors, as mixed as you can make them, are linked like days together. I still hear trains at night when the wind is right. I remember everything like a thread, this string that will never mend you. Tailor more than the memory of a kitchen floor or the fire door that we kept propping open. And I love this place, the enormous sky, and the faces, hands that I'm haunted by. So why can I forgive these buildings, these frameworks labeled home? Headlights race towards the corner of the dining room and half illuminate a face before they disappear.
And And I'm wondering if you have any particular elaboration on your thoughts about John's work over the years, like even far beyond Propaganda, because you're obviously a fan of his work too.
Yeah, totally. Hey Mercedes played with the Weaker Thans in Toronto, and it was great. I'm a fan, a huge fan of all of his work. Clearly, I think when I first heard the Weaker Thans, or when somebody played them for me, I didn't know that was the same guy, because it obviously sounded a lot different. And I recognized his voice a little bit from that verse in
Showdown.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I was like, it's like letters, but then there's the Showdown. Yes.
Yeah.
I recognize his voice from that. And by the way, I remember looking through the cassette liner notes and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you looked at those lyrics?
Yeah.
It's really funny, because I'm sure maybe you talked about it before, but like Chris does some like asides to John's lyrics.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, like John says like something in colored blue, and it's like, what? Like, what is he talking about? Like, yeah, and I don't have the cassette anymore. I have no clue what happened to it, but like I remember like during that part, waking up each morning with confusion, he puts little asides in there, like I don't know what he's talking about or something like that. But I remember that at one point it's like, what? Which is funny. But in terms of it was really Left and Leaving was the record that, like, actually it was Damon who kind of didn't force me to, but like we were hanging out one night and we were like playing cards or something, and he put it on the whole record, and I think he knew I would like it, and I was like, this is really good. I love this. In terms of the cover, it's I wouldn't even, I love that song. I wouldn't even say it's my favorite Weaker Thans song. I was commissioned to do that cover.
Oh wow, cool.
So I run a website called Downright, where you can commission artists, songwriters to write custom songs, and somebody wanted me to cover that for them.
Awesome.
And then eventually I just decided, with their blessing, to release it on Bandcamp. So yeah.
Amazing. Cool. This band is so clearly a borderline obsession for me.
I'd say so. You have a whole podcast about it.
Yeah.
Every song.
It's kind of ridiculous. I love doing this, and I get to have fantastic conversations with folks like you for the show, which is just endlessly meaningful to me. Cool. And keeps me, thinking about music and in new ways, and hearing what this stuff means to other people. And I'm wondering what a band like Propaganda, like with their lessons, their ideas, their humor, and all the things that they have done throughout the years, like what does a band like this sort of mean to you with regards like the music and the punk scene in general?
Yeah, their work ethic and their perseverance is incredible and impressive. And so you can't help but be impressed with bands that are still out there doing it, and doing it at a high level. I think of bands like Superchunk or NoFX, you know what I mean, that just are still doing it, and or like Descendants now. They're not doing it because they're gonna have a big hit or something like that, or whatever. They're not playing shows and just playing all old songs that people love and just sort of rehashing that stuff. It's not like a nostalgia or like a legacy act or something like that. They're still making new music, and it's awesome. And it has energy. So I would put Propaganda on a list that would include bands like Fugazi and NoFX and Superchunk in particular, like that. They're never going to make me feel too old to do something awesome.
Nice.
yeah. So, everyone's getting older, and, like I said, just yesterday, I had this, talk with somebody, and we're going to start a new band. And I was like, what's important to me is to be energetic and have something to say. And I know we're old people, but we can still like be youthful in our in our delivery, in our performance, in our songwriting. Like, let's not talk, we're not going to write songs about, how, our body hurts when we wake, every morning when we wake up, or like, I whatever, all that shit. But like, yeah. So anyway, that's what I think makes Propaganda like the band, one of the bands that just keeps me excited.
So Bob, I was looking through your Bandcamp, like I said earlier, and I want to talk about something else for just a second. Your top 100 of 2001 project.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can tell everybody what this is and what the status of it is, because I was listening to like so many of the different songs, and I was like, this is an amazing project. And I just want you to be able to like tell people about what you got going on there.
Yeah. I suffer from, project-itis or something like that, where I come up with these sort of projects. Like, for instance, this year, the reason why we're sort of got together and are doing this podcast is I'm doing this thing all year. I'm doing it all year. Every day is going to be a different artist, where I'm going to talk about on whatever, my socials, and talk about your favorite songs from these artists in alphabetical order.
Cool.
Because I'm OCD in that way. So in the year 2001, Hey Mercedes had a blog. It's called Are You Wearing a Wire? And we would all post things to it every day. It was super fun. I decided to count down my top 365 songs of all time.
Yeah.
In the year 2001, day by day. So every day on the blog, you could go on, okay, number 365 is Panama by Van Halen. And I made the list at the beginning, like on January 1st, the whole list is made.
Yeah.
I knew what number one was. And so I started doing that. And pretty soon into the year, I was getting really into it. People were enjoying it. I was, linked to the song or a video of the song or whatever, downloaded the song. And I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be cool if I took the top 100 of these and tried to do covers of them? Because they're my 100 favorite songs. I should maybe learn how to play them. Maybe I'll learn something myself, some new chords. I don't know.
Definitely.
Or at the very least, practice recording, because at the time I had sort of like a shitty cassette 4-track. And then eventually I had a digital 4-track, and now I can do it all on the laptop. So I started doing it, and I'm not sure what day those started dropping. So when it got to song number 100, I would post the cover of the song with the whatever song it was. The problem is, it's, in 2001, Hey Mercedes did a lot of touring. So there were a lot of, I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep up with doing a song a day. And I got started earlier in the year, so it wasn't actually me having to record a song a day.
Yeah.
But so I got behind, and I'm still getting to those songs. I have, I think, one, I could look right now. I have left to do 9. Wow, I only have 9 more songs that I need to do.
Yeah, I see like 30 through 21 posted. Do you have 10 or 11 through 20?
I've got a bunch. No, but I've got a bunch of those done. It's just I don't have the full set of those 10. I've got a few done, but I want the full set before I post the post. So the songs I have to do are Savory by Jawbox, Fake Plastic Trees, Night Swimming by R.E.M., Void by Red House Painters, Car by Built to Spill. These are all, so far these are easy. Chesterfield King by Jawbreaker. Then I've got 3 that are just, I don't know. I have to do Deacon Blues by Steely Dan, and then 2 Jeff Buckley songs. It's weird because it's a real snapshot of what I was listening to at the time, which I I still like all these songs, but they definitely wouldn't be in my top 100, but I still have to recover them. So
amazing.
still working on it. Yeah.
I mean, you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these collections posted already.
70 songs, yeah.
It's just fantastic. And I know that your Weaker Thans, I think it's on Assorted and Unsorted Volume 2 on Bandcamp for folks who want to check that out. But I posted a link to that on Twitter recently, but I'll post that again for folks whenever I get this episode posted. So
thank you.
You know, Bob, I'm really grateful to you for your time and for hanging out with me and chatting about Propaganda and touring and you know, Friction, especially like that story about, you know, touring and running across Propaganda. It seems like such a random yet meaningful time. So, oh, look,
It
here's
really
my
was.
cat now.
Oh, so cute.
This is little Chris. There he is.
Really, Chris?
Yep. Yeah, his name's Chris.
Amazing.
He's my little snuggly guy.
Look at him, sweetheart.
He's very sweet. So, Bob, thank you so much for coming on. Can you tell folks where to find you if they want to follow you and check out more of your work after hearing us today?
Yeah, I mean, the best place is probably just bobnanna.com, BOBNANNA. On all the socials, my handle is Hey Bob Nanna. So that's the best place. I'm there posting every single day. So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on and nerding out about Propaganda with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to Bob Nanna for the great conversation. Be sure to check and support Bob's work with Braid and Hey Mercedes, and go check out his band Friction if you've never heard them. Bob's cover of This Is a Fire Door, Never Leave Open is available on his Bandcamp page. Thank you as well to Chris Fox of Boss's Daughter for the great cover and conversation. Keith and I will be back for Anti-Manifesto Part 2 in the coming months. Find us on Instagram and Twitter at PropagandaPod. Thank you, as always, so much for listening. You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. Making this podcast is one of the greatest hobbies ever because I get to have amazing conversations with my friends, fans of the band, great musicians, and great scholars. Sometimes these conversations are super hard to get scheduled and don't work out. Countless interviews have been discussed that haven't yet happened. I get in contact with people and then the conversations fizzle. And some that I've thought about doing in the past just aren't ever going to be possible for a variety of reasons. It's just kind of how the world of creative projects go. Life's pace takes us all in different directions, and sometimes this stuff just, fades away. So this is a really cool little thing because a long in-progress possible guest and musical contributor that I haven't been able to connect with in real time yet, Seth from the fantastic band Arms Aloft on Red Scare Records, has wanted to do an episode with me for a long time. We've talked about it so many times, but we haven't been able to get there. However, the recent 30th anniversary of How to Clean Everything inspired Seth. He sent in a fun acoustic cover of Anti-Manifesto, and, we think our paths are going to cross for a real episode this fall, possibly. Their record, What a Time to Be Alive, is absolutely wonderful, and I hope you'll all consider going and checking it out if you've never heard the band. Seth wrote and said, "I'd learned the loud riffs years ago, but never tried it like this. Then the other night, listening to all the covers you guys posted and got thinking. So I gave myself 3 takes into my phone, and this was number 3. So I'm really delighted that Seth has joined the party for the 30th anniversary celebration of How to Clean Everything. You are not late at all to the party, Seth. So enjoy this little How to Clean Everything 30th anniversary appendix with Seth from Arms Aloft performing Anti-Manifesto.
Dancing left and play, ignore the message we convey. It seems we're enjoy the ride. You won't like this, but I have something to confide. We stand for something more than a faded sticker on a skateboard. Now I'll rain on you, reading or out the door. And I don't even care any fucking more. Witness this pair and accomplice. Witness this pair, lethargic, unconscious, browse for a question, complacent, completing their tasks. No questions asked. Consider this critic a credit, resting on laurels, completely invented, work acrobatics performed with both harness and man. And I'm so full of shit, but I will remain till this self-awareness fades, until I defeat the purpose of this soapbox that you made. Whole perseverance and vision of doubt. Green case of 40 ounce and bad case of big mouth. The sum of our parts, and I've never laughed harder. The song in our hearts, and I've never laughed harder. It don't really matter, 'cause nothing's ever felt as right as this.
You're incessant in your hard work, man. People are stoked, and good on you.
Hey, thanks. Well, let's dive into How to Clean Everything. Anti-Manifesto is the first song that you picked.
Look at that.
Sorry, I had to take my shirt off.
Don't look to him for an example of a vegan diet.
Don't diss him either, or he'll kick your ass.
He's a fucking mean fucker. Meanest skinhead I've ever met.
Tell me a little bit about why you picked Anti-Manifesto specifically, and then we'll dive into some of your thoughts on the tune.
Yeah. So in terms of the specifics of this one, this was the one I was probably undecided the most. I really just wanted to pick a song from their first album or a song around that time. So I was kind of going. I had three or four in my hand. Really, I thought Oka Everywhere would be kind of the one that I kind of settled on. Then
interesting.
I kind of moved to Wave from that. And then Who Will Help Me Bake This Bread was one that I really was kind of on, because I learned to play that on guitar. I also have a blog that I did when I was doing my master's degree, and I entitled it Who Will Help Me Bake This Bread.
Nice.
So I was going to maybe talk about that. And then Pigs Will Pay is one that I really love, that song, and I remember seeing them play that song at the very first time I ever saw Propaganda. And that was just a song, I think that at the time it was hard to hear because it wasn't on their album, and it was just kind of, the internet wasn't like it was back then, and so it was like, whoa, this song, fuck the cops.
Yeah.
And so I settled on this one mainly because I looked at all the songs, and I guess we could get into it, or we will get into it. I think I have one or two kind of lines that really stuck out and really kind of resonated with me as to why. Although I could have picked, hate myth, muscle etiquette one too, and how I used one of those lines in that song in one of my university papers. I still recall, but yeah, it's that's why. It's because it's from their first record. It has the line, "We stand for something more than a faded sticker on a skateboard." That is a line that continually has it's kind of been my manifesto with some of the things that I do, and some of the, if I relate it to, say, Rad Dads. I remember, when I had the very first Rad Dads meeting or event or whatever, I used that line in the fact that, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a community, and we're trying to make change, and we want to do something more than just, like you said, be this faded sticker on a skateboard. And I just thought that the imagery of that was very interesting. Growing up being a skateboarder and seeing friends put stickers on their boards and stuff like that, and I was just like, yeah, man, it's like I want to I'd like to say that I'm still a bit of an idealist, and the things that I do on this world, I try to make positive change, and it's from lines like that, songs like that, bands like Propaganda, bands like MDC, bands like I don't know, maybe Bad Brains a little bit too, like those bands that have, and Chris and Propaganda have talked about that as well. And so when they talk about, MDC and changing the worldview, I was like, yeah, totally. Like, to me, that band and Crass, I'm a huge Crass fan. And yeah, it's just kind of it formed me. It's the core of me, and this song is part of that journey.
Was this the first song that you ever heard by Propaganda?
I was trying to think about that. So my introduction to Propaganda was through a friend in high school. Well, it's actually kind of more of a friend of a friend. So my good friend Aaron, at the time we were in high school, he lived on his own. And so he went to school part-time, he worked. And so he had this place, you're in high school, like, whoa, man, he lives on his own. He has his own place. We would have, parties there and stuff like that. And there was a guy, so there was, we were all skateboarders, kind of punk rockers, kind of freaks and geeks, and all that sort of awkwardness that comes with, trying to find your identity and who you are in high school. And so there's a group of us. It wasn't very big. And he, there's this guy named Peter that moved from Winnipeg, and he was looking for a place to live. He went to our high school, and I think he ended up getting kicked out of his house or something. Anyways, he ended up moving in with Aaron, and he had this Propaganda tape. He's like, hey, like, this is a local band from Winnipeg. Check it out. And we were like blown away, as most people were at the time. And I don't know, probably in terms of the first, it's the first tape on the record, right? First song, side A.
So, but here's the thing: if you have a cassette tape, just because they handed you the tape doesn't mean that it was rewound or that you put it in side A when you put the cassette in. You know what I mean? Like, say you accidentally put it on side B and it wasn't rewound, and like the first thing you ever heard would be like track 10. You know what I mean? Like it's a real mystery here. And I know that I'm belaboring the point, but it's really funny to think about the cassette tape being the first version, because whenever you put a tape in, you really just kind of put it in and it just starts in the middle of a song oftentimes.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. And I don't even know if it was like the Fat Record release or just like a taped tape.
Mm-hmm.
I remember walking from school to Aaron's house and with Peter, and we were talking, and he was like, I got this tape. We should go listen to it. And we walked to it, and it got to Aaron's house, and he threw it in. And I remember that. I don't remember this song. So it was really just, the reason I picked the song was more just wanting something from the first album. you've talked on your show about that, where that album stands up now, and but it was just very formative. And I wanted to link it into the first time I saw them. After reflecting, like, this is the one I was going to change, and I could probably go to Pigs Will Pay, because I really remember them playing that song at the very first time seeing them. So the album came out, 93?
Mm-hmm.
So I probably would have heard them maybe just late 93, maybe 94. So that would have been in grade 11.
Wow.
So I'm 45, so it is that grade 11, so you're about 15. So that would have been 30 years ago.
Yeah. The 30th anniversary of the release of How to Clean Everything is in about 2 months as well.
Wow.
Yeah. May of 93. So it's March of 2023 right now. So in 2 months, it'll be 30 years that the record has been released.
That's so crazy to me, right?
I know, it's ridiculous. Well, I'm amazed that you got to see that first record tour. What do you remember about that lineup, seeing them live, like John, Chris, and Jordan? Does any memory stand out to you about seeing John live with the band?
Yeah, I remember that show, as much as I can remember 30 years ago. I actually have a ticket here. I'll show you. I think I sent you this right here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a 1997 ticket. Cool. With Choke. Nice.
So that would have been the first time. I know they were there, like in Edmonton. I mentioned that, like, that basement show or whatever. And I think maybe they played a hall show with that Brent Oliver doing it. So I'm not sure if they were probably not touring that album, but John was still in it. So that was the first time I was aware that they were in Edmonton. And I think it's probably one of the first time, like maybe they came once or twice, but they were still, relatively kind of, I don't want to say unknown, but like just not as big as they are now.
Right.
So that was the first time I was in university, 97. Choke opened up for that. And so Choke, I could kind of link there's a connection to the SNFU we'll get in a sec here. What do I remember about the show? I remember that people were hesitant to mosh. Like there was this kind of this weird time where it's like, Fugazi was like, don't hurt people. Like, I get that. And I'm totally, against that. But there is some aggressiveness, I think, that kind of comes with that music, and you can do it in a safe and caring manner in terms of like the circle pit. And I remember that and getting these weird glares. I remember Chris talked a lot between songs. I don't remember John so much, but I do remember around this particular show, they actually had to move it from, you can see on the ticket it says Bonnie Doon Hall. They actually had to move it because of security reasons. So they got some threats from some Nazi groups in and around Edmonton that there was going to be some violence. And so the promoters were a bit nervous and wouldn't have enough security. So they moved it to a bar kind of like setting. So I remember that there was this weird aura around this show because, well, we thought Nazis were going to come and beat up the band. So actually a friend of mine who I've only met via email and stuff. He used to live here. His name's Dave Sands. So he actually put out the first Misery Signals record. And he did a lot of promotion back in the day. And so the Propaganda stayed at his house for that show. And Dave was telling me that they had to drive around the block a few times to make sure Nazis weren't following them.
God.
And so I remember that in terms of I remember there being a huge police presence around there. And I remember people being kind of pissed off, but now reflecting, it was just more for the safety of people. And to me, it's crazy. Those early shows, there wasn't really that ton of violence, but there was always this kind of neo-Nazi presence.
It's like a looming sense of doom almost. Will it, won't it?
Yeah.
Very frustrating.
Yeah. So I don't really, in terms of that, I do remember they played Pigs Will Pay, and I'm pretty sure, almost guarantee that they played this song, Anti-Manifesto. And Yeah, that was a long time ago. And to link it to the SNFU piece here.
Yeah.
So Choke opened. And so do you know the band Choke?
Yes, I do. I saw them. I saw Choke 6 times last year.
Okay, excellent. So the main guitarist and singer is named Sean, and Sean is linked to the Devil's Voice, which is the SNFU cover band that Jesse from Misery Signals, who's a good friend of mine, started a number of years ago.
Oh, sweet.
So he was teaching out in Saskatchewan, and he made him and his wife move back to Edmonton, and he wanted to start this SNFU cover band, and so he reached out to Sean and Choke. So he's in that. So there's the SNFU connection, and also the fact that Choke has played, opened up for a number of, well, you can see like here, this is another show. So this is Todd's first show where they played with Randy, and Choke played for their, and Choke, the very first time Bad Religion came to town, SNFU opened for them, as well as Choke. So Choke
Nice.
and SNFU and Bad Religion, that was the very first time I saw Bad Religion, and I'm a huge Bad Religion fan.
Yeah.
And as well. And so there's that connection. So Sean from Choke his band played yesterday. His new band, King Thief, was last night. So I went and saw him and chatted a little bit with him. So there's this like connection of bands and Canadiana punk rock.
I mean, yeah, the community is small. Like that's when you get into a super niche thing in the world, whether it's going to shows, making podcasts, like whatever, you really figure out just how tight knit and small certain niche groups of interests actually are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Super fun. Okay, you are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. On this episode, I am chatting with Uli Sailor, formerly of the band D Sailors, and now currently performing under his name and performing on piano. Uli came to my attention due to his fantastic cover of Propaganda's Anti-Manifesto, and then I dove into his discography of piano covers and his records with D Sailors. I had a blast chatting with Uli, and you can find him on Instagram and Twitter at Uli Sailor. So let's hear his rendition of Anti-Manifesto, followed by our conversation. Enjoy.
Ignore the message we convey. It seems we're only here to entertain. A rebellion cut to fit. Well, I refuse to be the soundtrack to it. We entertain, we're still knee deep in shit. There's something wrong inside. We've put it safe, enjoyed the ride. You won't like this, but I've something to confide. We stand for something more than a faded sticker on his skateboard. We rain on your parade, we're out the door. And I don't even care any fucking more. Witness despair in accomplice. Witness despair, lethargic, unconscious, no brows furred in questions, complacent, complete in their tasks. No questions asked. Consider this critic a Creighton, just resting on laurels, completely invented. Word acrobatics performed with both harness and net. And I'm so full of shit. doubt. Green ink at 2-6 house, a bad case of big mouth, a sum of our parts, and I've never loved harder. A song in our hearts, and I've never loved harder. It don't really matter, 'cause nothing's ever felt as right as this. By the way, I stole this riff. Dance and laugh and play, ignore the message we convey. It seems we're only here to entertain. A rebellion catch a fit, I refuse to be the soundtrack to it. We entertain, we're still knee deep in shit. And shit. And we're so full of it.
Uli Sailor, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me.
I'm delighted you're here, Uli. I'm wondering if you can just spend a moment and introduce yourself a little bit to the audience out there so they know a little bit about who you are.
Yes, I'm Uli. I'm 46. I live in Berlin. I'm a musician and a video producer. I live here since 2005. I grew up in the West in a city near Cologne, and it's close to the Dutch and the Belgian border. And I mean, that's where it all started, in the west of Germany, and now I'm in Berlin, but very happy here. So
Wonderful. Well, it's great to have you. And I'm looking at your background there, and you've got all kinds of cool stuff in the background, giant propaganda logo behind you in your record room. And I got my records behind me here. It's really fun to see kind of like what people's little happy spaces are like in their homes. It's really cool. So Uli, can you just tell me a little bit about your entry into music and playing music and kind of finding punk rock, and just a little bit more about your musical backstory?
Well, I think my stories might be very similar to the stories a lot of people at our age experienced. You know, at high school, a friend of mine who was skateboarding, he handed me over a CD of Bad Religion, Suffer, and that kind of changed everything in my musical life. Before that, I was listening, I think, to Guns N' Roses, Iron Maiden, Vanilla Ice, and MC Hammer. You know, I think that was kind of the range.
Yeah,
and
stop, collaborate, and listen.
Yeah. And but Bad Religion, Suffer, you know, 15 songs in 26 minutes, you know, distorted guitars, very fast, but also melodic. Since then, I think I fell in love also with this melancholy of Greg Graffin's voice, you know, and this kind of opened up into the whole Fat Wreck cosmos. Later on, I joined a band when I was 15, and our drummer, he was kind of like the influencer. You know, back in the days, I think there was no term like influencer, but he was the guy who came with new tapes and new CDs and new bands. He said, "Hey, have you listened to this and check out this?" And he brought like the Lagwagon, NoFX, you know, all the Fat Wreck bands in my life. And he also was the main reason why our band then transformed into a melodic hardcore band, because we all loved the sound, like playing super fast, playing very melodic. And that's how I got into the music. And but yeah, out of the band, I was also the guy, you know, our guitarist would write the songs, I would write the lyrics, and also take care of the band business, you know, organizing shows, trying to get the band started. And this is how I connected to more and more of the punk rock world and got into this.
Were you playing guitar and piano from a young age?
No, I started to play piano when I was 6. My mom, she was like an elementary school teacher, and she sent me to to have piano lessons. So this is where I started guitar. Actually, I wanted to play guitar when when I got into punk rock, because being a piano player in the 90s wasn't that kind of cool. I mean, Fate No More had some synthesizers or keyboards, but I think that was about it. I wanted to play guitar. So actually, in the later years of my band, I also played guitar, but only power chords. I wanted to play because guitar is like the most important instrument for me as a musician to listen to when I listen to music. So
I know you have a little bit of a saxophone background as well.
Yeah, I was at a school that kind of it was like a musical oriented school. So my mom said I could choose a second instrument to piano, and I don't know why. I think I was 10. I chose the tenor saxophone to play in the orchestra of the school, and I don't know. I wasn't so happy there, but when I got into punk rock, I think it was even our drummer, our guitar player. Hey, you play saxophone. Let's do some ska punk stuff. So yeah, that's how we ended up being a ska punk melodic hardcore band. And actually, a lot of our fans really loved the ska punk songs, and we were kind of annoyed that everyone, play some more ska punk saxophone songs. So yeah, and once in a while, like I get asked a lot still if I want to play the saxophone. I'm not such a big fan of the saxophone, but I know how to play it, and I do it from time to time. But yeah, I think the saxophone is like a two-sided. How do you say it?
Was your drummer the one who introduced you to Propaganda as well? Is that kind of like where you found how to clean everything, like through the drummer in your band, Uli Sailor?
Yes. I still remember the day he handed me that tape, and I listened to it in my car. It was way later than it was released. I think it was 95 when I heard Anti-Manifesto for the first time, and that really blew me away. I think that was the most life-changing moment that brought me into that kind of style, because of the guitar playing, the energy, the lyrics, the singing. I don't know. I think, yeah, Propaganda musically and lyrically changed my life.
Was Anti-Manifesto the first Propaganda song that you ever heard?
Yes.
Okay, me too. We have that in common. That was the first one that I ever heard as well. It's honestly, what an amazing starting point. I mean, it's the first song on Fat Music for Fat People. It's the first song on their biggest selling album of all time. It's really amazing. I'm really glad that I heard that one first and not Nation States, because I feel like so many people said that Nation States was their first song they heard, and I feel so lucky that it was the first song on the first record. It's my first song. I just really love that little detail. So your band is very good. I don't know if I had never heard your band. I just found your work recently, but you had a band in the early 2000s called Die Sailors, based out of Germany. And I was listening to Mind Dressing today. What an awesome record. Tell me a little bit more about your trajectory as a band, because, this story it's really interesting, because you were super popular in South America, I think, but I'm just now learning about this band for the first time.
Well, we were just, how do you say? We were just a local band starting out in the west of Germany. And we did most of the stuff we managed ourselves. I did the booking. Have you ever heard of the Book Your Own Fucking Life?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. There was a German version of this one. It was called Buch dein eigenes beficktes Leben. That's like the translation of Book Your Own Fucking Life. And, I would call from my parents' house. I would call the clubs and try to get shows, or we would invite other bands to play at our youth center, and they would invite us over. And we kind of started this whole thing with this DIY spirit, let's help each other and try to get, try to get ahead.
Yeah.
And the more we got into that melodic hardcore thing, of course, we would have loved to, I don't know, be booked to go on tour with NoFX, with Lagwagon, with Propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were kind of a couple of years too late. Like our debut album was released in '98. That was the album before Mind Dressing. Mind Dressing came out in 2000. It kind of took off a little bit. We were supporting some bands. We were playing with Randy, with Satanic Surfers, with Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Then we toured with Terrorgruppe. Terrorgruppe is a German band that was on Destiny tour booking, that is booking all the bands in Europe. But I don't know, we were a couple of years too late, but still had some following in our hometown, in the west of Germany. We had a crowd, but we didn't make the next step. I don't know why. We tried everything, but we had a great time. I think we played 400 shows.
What was it about? What was it about Brazil? I know that Brazil, had a lot of success.
Yeah, Brazil was amazing, and I think when we made it to Brazil, that was, I made my peace with becoming a rock star.
Sure.
Actually, it was the same way. We were on a small label called Vitaminepillen Records. They mostly released German punk bands, but they had a couple of English singing ones. And we would do our thing. Let's invite some band over, and they invite us. And we found a band from Brazil called Nitro Minds. And they wanted to come on tour to Europe, and we say, hey, let's make a split record. You come on tour, we organize the tour, we get one van, we share everything, and you do the same for us in Brazil. The singer had a label in Brazil. He released Mind Dressing and the album, our third album, also. And when we came to Brazil, it was like a blast. It really, I don't know why, but I think there were not so many Fat Wreck bands touring Brazil. And we had, we also were lucky because Nitro Minds were kind of popular in Brazil. So we came over and we were like, I don't know, they really freaked out. The shows were crazy. And still today, people are writing, like, when are you coming back to Brazil? And, because we were playing, we were practicing a lot. We were touring a lot. We were really serious about it. And I had the feeling when we came to Brazil, people were finally honoring it. All the things we did. And like you said, I haven't listened to the albums in a while, or once in a while I listen to them and I think, hey, they're really nice produced and it's nice songs. And I don't know, it's a piece of punk rock history, at least for myself,
For sure. And I mean, those records are available. I plugged it right into my Apple Music here at my house today, and boom, they all pop right up. Did you self-release all those?
Did I what?
Did you put those records out onto the streaming services? Okay, I was wondering because your name pops up as kind of like in the record label spot on Apple Music for my my American iTunes store here. So I'm glad that you put those out, because it's important for things to be available, because you never know who's going to find it.
That's true. And in these times, if you're not on Spotify, you'll be forgotten.
Yeah,
I think. And since I'm, still in bands, still a musician, and I know how to do this. I thought, hey, I want to put up the most important things. It's not everything on there. Like 1 or 2 EPs are missing, but I'm still working on getting these online. And I also found a label that was releasing the third album on vinyl. And we're working on that Mind Dressing will be also re-released on vinyl in fall.
Okay, that rocks. That's great news. So I will keep in touch with that, because as you can see behind me, I'm a record guy, so I'll see what I can do about tracking down a copy of that in the coming months. Another thing that's really interesting about your bio is that you used to work at Lookout Records in California, and the label doesn't exist anymore, but I mean, obviously it's so huge for, originally signing Green Day, the Mr. T Experience, and all these amazing bands that were so popular for so many years. Operation Ivy, for goodness sake, they released a Rancid EP. Tell me a little bit about your time working for Lookout, because that is just so cool.
Yeah, the whole buildup was in the 90s, or let's say it the other way. My parents said, hey, don't become a musician, get a real job. You have to study. And they said, you don't have to work, but I didn't have to work at a bar, or, I didn't have to make some money for my rent. My parents were paying for this. And so I did some internships, so I worked for a local fanzine here in Germany. Then I worked for Cargo Records. It's a indie records distributor.
Yeah,
And
they did
were,
Dude Ranch by Blink-182, right?
Yeah. Or maybe that was Cargo in the UK. There's a Cargo UK, and there's some connection.
Yeah.
And they were I wanted to go to Fat Records and make an internship there. So I wrote them an email, and then 6 months later, they were writing, "Hey, Uli, sorry, it's not possible."
Yeah.
And then I was at Cargo Records and talking to the boss and said, "Hey, I would love to go to California to work there." And they asked Lookout Records that they have an intern here, and he wants to go to California if it's possible, and they said yes.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, we kind of made it possible. And for 8 months, I was interning at Lookout, living in Oakland. In Emeryville. It's like a small city between Oakland and Berkeley, and worked there for 8 months, and it was amazing. I was close to Gilman, saw so many shows there. To be at Lookout, I was there when they switched distribution from Mordem to another distribution company. I forgot, but I could take the vinyls. I got the returns. And every vinyl that had like a little knick, a little, dangle that was not be able to sell anymore, I could, keep a copy. So
nice.
I think I brought 100 Lookout LPs back from the US.
Amazing.
And,
what are your favorite Lookout bands?
Well, I have to be honest that Lookout was not so much on my radar when I went there. And being in the East Bay, I saw how big this sound is, and I have to say, like Avail, really like the Over the Gems, blew my mind. Of course, Operation Ivy, the first 2 Green Day albums are amazing, but also the Queers, Screeching Weasel, it's so much like it's like all this Ramones style punk rock that's not so popular in Germany. The Ramones, of course, are popular, but I think this whole pop punk thing that is typical for the East Bay, that's not so big here. I got into that scene, and I saw so many nice shows there, really, house shows. I don't know. I remember one of my first shows that I went to was at the Fillmore in San Francisco, and it was the Mr. T Experience, Nerf Herder, and I forgot the third band. But I was going there with Chris and Molly from Lookout, and the first guy who enters the room is Fat Mike, and he comes right to our table and sits down. And I was like 21, and I said, "Oh," and I was there. I couldn't speak for a couple of minutes.
That's like the
really
guy.
my biggest fan. It's like the guy,
Yeah.
He's sitting there, and I'm sitting there, Yeah, that was really crazy. But
I love it. Did you ever get to see Propaganda at all during your time in the States or in Germany or anything?
Yeah, I was thinking about how many times I saw Propaganda because because of your podcast.
Yeah,
and I saw them 3 times. I saw them 1996 in Germany during the Let's Talk Morocco.
Oh, cool
tour. It was a really small venue, 130 capacity, and it was amazing. It was really, I don't know, I was 18 or 19. It was burning, amazing, crazy, nice,
incredible. Was it John K. Samson lineup?
Yeah, it was John K. Samson lineup.
Because Todd joined the band in December of '96, so like
really?
if you may have seen like the very end of John's time in the band.
Okay, yeah, for sure, I did that. And they were supported by But Alive, a quite famous German punk band that also distributed their records in Germany. BA Records.
I've got a couple of their things over here because they were involved with G7 as well.
Yeah.
And I've got an I Spy But Alive split 7-inch too.
Yeah. The second time I saw them was in the US in 2001 in Houston at a club called Fitzgerald's. And it was also an amazing lineup. It was two locations, a smaller one downstairs. The lineup was Small Brown Bike, Leatherface, and Hot Water Music. And
love
upstairs
Small Brown Bike too.
Yeah, they were on Lookout as well.
Yeah,
by the way, with one album. And upstairs it was J Church, Fabulous Disaster, Avail, and Propagandy. And really one of the best shows in my life I've ever
That
seen.
was one show?
Yeah. Downstairs and upstairs. Yeah.
Could people go back and forth between the two shows?
Of course.
That's like a mini festival too. I mean, that's amazing. A couple stages with incredible bands. I loved Small Brown Bike. Dead Reckoning is one of my favorite records. And then the Riverbed, I think, was their Lookout Records LP.
Yeah.
So great. And I know that a few of those guys are making records again, or making music again. I think I can't remember what they're called. It's like 84 Tigers or something like that. It's with the drummer from the Swellers. The singer from Small Brown Bike has a new band. So definitely check that out if you haven't heard that, because I think those guys are kind of back.
Nice.
I could be completely wrong, but I don't feel like I'm making this up.
But I saw them another one, and I saw them on the Today's Ashes, Tomorrow's Empires tour in 2002. But what I wanted to say, I missed them really in the last 10 years. I don't know why. I mean, I was on tour myself, or I couldn't make it. But I'm very unhappy about this, that I haven't seen them in such a long time.
You've only seen a trio lineup, then. You've never seen them as a 4-piece, have you?
Never.
Incredible. Okay, well, I'm super jealous that you've seen both trio lineups, because I've never seen them as a trio, and you've only seen them as a trio. So that's really kind of funny.
That's true. And yeah, but let's see. I mean, I hope they will be around for a while and come back so I can see them. But I remember last time they were playing in Wiesbaden, which is like 6.5 hours drive, or I don't know. Sometimes life comes in between this. But I saw them on YouTube.
Amazing. Yeah, I watch YouTube shows so many times, it's ridiculous. Well, Uli, I found your work just recently. So you've been kicking around for decades at this point, and I'm just now finding your stuff like a brand new listener the last 2 or 3 weeks, I guess. I found your YouTube covers videos that you do, and from there I found your EPs that you've done that are on Apple Music and streaming and stuff. And you've done Bad Religion, Millencolin, No Effects, Propaganda, Lagwagon. And you also did a volume 2 in German of covers EP. Tell me a little bit about the piano EPs, covers EPs that you have been putting together the last couple years.
Yeah, after playing like 20, 25 years in bands, there was a point, it was right before Corona, that most of the bands were disbanding, and or it was just too complicated to get together. My last band, I had an indie band after D Sailors. I had an indie band called Tusk. And, at that point, our guitar player was living in Hamburg. Our drummer was living in Frankfurt. Like just to get the band together would cost like, I don't know, for train tickets, for accommodation. It was just like so much organizational stuff that I thought, how could I play a concert only by myself? Not to have to organize anything, just to go and play somewhere. And of course, I had in mind the guys that just take their acoustic guitar and play somewhere, but I'm not a guitar player. So I thought, okay, the only instrument I can play is the piano. And then the click moment was, hey, and I'm also the singer. So I don't need the band. And that was the initial idea. And then when I thought about playing a show, I thought, it's so hard to have a set that's really nice with your own songs. Writing a whole set for a concert with my own songs.
Yeah,
it's just a big challenge.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I was at first it was like in German we say it's a Schnapsidee. Schnapps is liquor. It's a liquor idea, something you have when you're in the bar and drinking and have like crazy idea. So I said,
I love that saying.
I will play piano concerts. And then I was thinking a little bit more about it. And then I came up with the idea, hey, let's do some covers. But I don't know if you remember the time when covers were kind of a little of a taboo. I remember when we started with D Sailors, we would also cover NoFX and Bad Religion and even Cypress Hill, or just stuff. But I think there was a time when bands started to cover Britney Spears, or I even remember 2004 I saw Green Day on the American Idiot tour, and they were covering We Are the Champions at the end from Queen. Or like I thought it's like just too cheap just to cover. So I thought, okay, I will cover songs on the piano, but I will make it very hard for me. It just can't be any songs. I just want to cover the best of the 80s, 90s, and today. So I came up with the concept. I only want to cover the first song of the album I heard the band the first time.
Very cool concept. I love that. I was going to ask why Anti-Manifesto. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and it's Anti-Manifesto from Propaganda. It's Island of Shame from Lagwagon. It's You Are the Government from Suffer from Bad Religion. It's Bouillon from Millen Collins, the second album from Life on a Plate. And it's Linoleum from NoFX. Okay, I have to admit, it's a little cheat. Actually, the first song was sold out from White Trash. But Linoleum is the bigger hit, you know.
Yeah.
I talked to a friend. He said, "Hey, take Linoleum." And
yeah,
but having in mind, I want to play a show. It was the right choice. To include some songs that the people really love and like. And for me to play Linoleum at these shows, I've played 20 concerts now. I started to release this. It's not. I don't know. It's really evolving. I didn't expect that when I came up with that idea, but Linoleum is really one key song of this whole project. It really touches the people, and you play it, and I don't know. It's great that it came that way. And California punk is the one side of my musical socialization.
Yeah.
But we toured here with a lot of German punk bands. So I thought, hey, the EP2, I'd like to sing some German songs. That most of the bands are friends of mine, and I'm very close related to them. So it was, I wanted to play some German songs as well. And now both EPs will also be released on an LP. Side A will be the California punk side, and the side B will be with the German song. So it's perfect. Actually, when I had the idea, I didn't know that it comes out so perfectly. And this is me. Yeah? So this is.
Your Anti-Manifesto cover is very, very good. I love it. I've listened to it many times. My girlfriend was listening to it earlier. She's like, wow, I am really appreciating Propaganda in kind of a new way. And so that is something that, like, I just wanted to give you a compliment about how well you did. Let's talk about the original version really quick. What do you love about Propaganda's original version, Anti-Manifesto, that kind of just stands out to you as a song itself?
I think the sound, the energy is the most important thing. That what blew me away at first. As a teenager, bands with English lyrics didn't interest us back in the day so much. It was more about the energy and feeling the atmosphere. And later on, when I listened to Propaganda Anti-Manifesto the first time, I wasn't aware of the whole political dimension the song and the album and the band has. But the energy, the guitar sound, being a trio, I didn't know they were a trio, but just three guys playing so hard, so energetic, but so perfectly. I think this band, like, it symbolizes for me so many things that I love about punk rock, and it's also that they play so well. And many people say, hey, when you play in a punk rock band, you can play sloppy. Not for me. I think when you're in a punk rock band, to play your instruments well, to have that kind of message, to be on point, it belongs together. And I think no other band, really brings that so well together like Propaganda. And I also say this a lot of times, no other band aged that well as Propaganda did today. So many bands from the 90s, when you look at them today, I don't know, it's sometimes hard to relate to some of the bands, like even Bad Religion, when they released the Christmas album, I thought, no way, man, even if it's a joke or if it's let's sing some Christmas songs, it belongs to our culture. With Propaganda, it didn't. I never had that feeling, and even with changing John K. Samson to Todd or becoming more metal, to have that more hardcore sound, to me it just felt like more consequent with the attitude, with the message they have, to evolve in that kind of musical direction. And it was, I mean, I didn't know it 1995, but now that I look back, it was all there with Anti-Manifesto, and there's no other band that I know that kind of kept this, how do you say, kept this constant.
Yeah, it's like a constant urgency or an evolution, like staying open-minded to change and growing instead of like, just rehashing the same thing every couple years. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes.
What about so you tell me a little bit about the recording of your version of Anti-Manifesto. I'm curious, like, what are we hearing in, like, if I was looking at your audio interface on your computer when you're tracking this thing, like, what are we hearing? What are we listening to? What kind of instruments are kind of, making this entire tune up? Like, tell me about your process.
Well, I did demos first at my rehearsal room. Here in Berlin, I joined a punk band called Terrorgruppe. I played with them the last 10 years, and I was using the rehearsal space to record my demos. And when I had the demos, I have a friend, he's a music producer, he's an old friend of mine too. And I asked him if he would like to record it with me. And I also asked him if he would like to play some cello, because he plays cello, but he's a punk rock fan too. And I have another friend, he's playing in a quite bigger band here in Germany. I learned from another friend today, in Germany there's there's a word called Bekannter. And this is kind of, it's not a friend, but it's not like a stranger. But there's no English word for this. It's somehow in between. Anyway, I know him, and he has a grand piano at his practice room, and he had it. He got it 10 years ago. I knew about it, and I asked him about the idea, and I asked him if we could record it there. And since he's playing in a bigger band, he has a nice mixing desk there. He has microphones there, and he said, "Hey, of course, do what you like. You can use everything." So we were recording there with nice microphones and putting a lot of effort in the takes. And we recorded this. I think
I love the cello so much. The cello really is an incredible addition to it, because it's got the dun 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 dun. It's really a sharp, crisp approach to making the song really just jump out at you with that cello addition in there as well. I love that you did that.
I knew if I record them, it would be a little bit too boring for the people just to have piano and vocals. And I thought, if I want to have the people listen to it again, I need a little bit more in the production. But I started to play shows by myself. Like my friend, he moved to Warsaw for a couple of years, and he cannot play with me. And with the idea, like, it's my solo project, I want to play shows by myself. I will play shows just with my piano and also play Propaganda and all the songs with cello. But we just played a tour in February. He came from Warsaw, and we played 9 shows in Germany. And the people really, you cannot imagine how they look at the cello. They sit like they would all melt away. It's such a pleasure to play with him. It's so great.
I love it. Did anything stand out to you that was like challenging or threw you for a loop a little bit while you were making this cover? Did anything kind of like present an unforeseen challenge in any way with this song?
Well, actually, there's one part in the song,
Yes.
before the And we actually had to slow that down to 10%, to listen to what is he playing there. At the shows, I would always stop at that, and then, does anybody know what's next? To find out if there's really Propaganda fans in the audience.
Yeah.
But yes, sometimes like
nice.
It comes from the back. But the rest, I mean, I heard it in the Anti-Manifesto episode 1. What was the name of the of Bran from?
Oh yeah,
Braid?
with Bob Nanna from Braid.
Bob, I think he said I chose Anti-Manifesto because I thought that's a song that I could play because it's not so challenging, and I thought for to transform it to the piano, it was quite convenient as well. Of course, I had to practice a lot to keep the pace, and I mean that was one of my main ideas as well, that when you go to YouTube and Google punk rock covers on the piano, everyone would play ballads.
Yeah,
and it's so boring. I mean, you listen to it 30 seconds and then you think, it's a ballad, but then it's boring. And what I thought is, I want to keep the original energy. I want to keep the pace. I want to keep the message, and that worked very well.
Fantastic.
Also with Propaganda, although it's like 4 minutes, it's a long song.
It is. It's a workout. Like it really, it's really amazing how I was looking at the, the length of it in your recording. I was like, wow, this song is like really an effort. So I was glad that you actually went through with it, because it's a long one. So, I know in your work, in your career, you do a lot of videography, and I was looking at your YouTube page and I found this massive concert film that you made in 2007 with the Weaker Thans, which is incredible. I watched like 45 minutes of it just earlier today. And I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your experience of filming the Weaker Thans, because, obviously John was in Propaganda.
Yeah, of course. I was part of a internet startup that was kind of like making music documentaries. We were filming shows and interviews, and I was part of a bigger team, of course. I didn't do all the cameras by myself, but I was in charge of the music channel, and I was picking the bands that we were filming. So when the possibility came up to film a Weaker Thans concert, of course, I took that chance. I don't know, I can't really recall, I didn't have any personal interaction with the band. We were just there. We were the filming crew. So I don't have so much memories about this, but the show was amazing, and it was such a great tour. They were in a great shape. I think 2007 was a great year for a Weaker Thans show, because this kind of sums up, their whole work, their whole legacy, I'd say.
For sure. And I was amazed at the quality of it as well. So I presume it's a soundboard recording, but I think there's also like 4 cameras going here on this recording.
Yeah, I think it was 4 or 5, and we also had moving cameras. So, not just like, I don't know, I think GoPros weren't there at that time, but, having 4 or 5 cameras. But actually, like video technical wise, that was right before the switch, when the Canon digital reflex cameras came out. This was full HD, but it was very progressive to film that in full HD. So yeah, but the whole channel, the company I worked for, they didn't make it. So, and then they went offline in 2009. I found the concert on my hard drive, so I uploaded it. I hope it will stay there. I don't know.
I just love that you did that, by the way. You got to save it. Yeah. You got to save it. It's so good. I'm definitely I've shared it before, and I will share it again. Were you one of the cameras in the pit recording? Were you filming up at John? No. Where were you?
I was on the right side. I was standing, how do you say? I was standing in the crowd on the right.
Okay. Okay, cool. Camera. Nice. Very good. I love it. Well, Uli, I'm delighted to have found your work and chatting about these 2 covers EPs. They're both excellent. I listened to the German one as well, and I'm loving that you're going to be able to put that out as a vinyl LP. Are you planning more? What does the future hold for you with this project?
Yeah, actually, my first idea was to play shows, but now I'm working on my first debut album.
Cool.
I'm writing songs for an album which will have German lyrics.
Yeah.
Because I'm touring here, and I don't know. I think at the moment it makes more sense. I've playing in bands with English lyrics my whole life, so I want to try it out. But there's one dream I have, or one crazy idea. Do you know Joey Cape's 7 Days a Week record label?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought maybe one day I should contact Joey and ask him if he wants to make a punk rock piano album with me, and then I'll do an English piano album. That
I
would
mean,
be rad.
obviously, I think that you should definitely do that. I mean, what a dream that would be, Amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I don't know if it works. It's just a crazy idea, but it's so many opportunities coming up. There's so many ideas evolving around this punk rock piano idea, with playing shows, with recording stuff, with doing things. I can't do it all in 1 year. So I will play more shows. I will record my debut album, and then let's see where it takes me.
Well, Uli, where can people find you if they want to get in touch or follow along with what you're doing?
Well, when you look for the punk rock piano on Facebook or Instagram, you can find it, or punkrockpiano.com is my website. So, and there you can find all the contacts, and you can write me or leave a message. I'm happy for everything that comes along.
Well, Uli, it has been a real pleasure chatting with you about Anti-Manifesto, your covers EP, working at Lookout, going on tour, making piano punk rock records. It's a fantastic conversation. I'm really grateful that you were willing to spend some time with me today and hang out and nerd out about Propaganda a little bit.
Witness this parent accomplice.
And I'm just wondering if you can just tell me a little bit about the significance of this song, maybe some of your favorite things about the lyrics and music. I'm just kind of curious your thoughts here to start.
Anti-Manifesto, I mean, just that, I mean, musically, when it first, that like, and like the way it comes in, it was the first time I'd ever heard harmonics, like, I was like, what is that? I remember going to like trying to find somebody and be like, listen to this. What the fuck is the sound? How are they making this with the guitar? And it, it's so funny too, is I was like really conflicted, like based off of Ska Sucks, because the opening of Anti-Manifesto is so fucking ska, like those up chords, like, yeah. It just, and it feels very dancey at the beginning, but which makes total sense for that first, like, dance and laugh and play, like, that. I think that song is such a perfect first song for propaganda in general, because it lays out everything. It's like, and it's very non-specific. It's like the other songs that go forward have these, and especially in the later albums, they are really about one particular thing that they really care about and have deep dived on a certain subject or in history or a specific thing, which I always found pretty intimidating in some ways. But this first song in some ways feels like the preface or the introduction of a book. They say, listen, this is what we're doing. Just so you know, we're starting something more here than a faded sticker on a skateboard. And for me, it felt like they were talking directly to me, because motherfucker had some faded stickers on his skateboard, and I think that has been, it was a challenge, in a lot of ways. It was like, is that all you, and I mean, dude, and that has like been pervasive my whole life, this thought of like, am I just this faded sticker on the skateboard? Am I the guy that just
post on his Instagram account, the black square, and that's it.
Right.
Do I, because it's difficult in some ways. Suddenly you're like, am I a political figure? Am I not a political figure? Is this Instagram thing that I have something that I'm going to use it to constantly put out statements of stuff I believe in, or is it just a fun little entertaining thing? Should that stuff go through everything that you do? And that all starts from like Anti-Manifesto and the way that it affected me in the kind of confrontive nature of it. But he also, like I said earlier, by the way, I stole this riff,
Yeah.
or that where he says, I love this lyric in that song where he says, like, word acrobatics performed with both harness and net. I'm so full of shit.
Yes.
Was this sudden thing of like, he's wait. He's acknowledging, he's pulling back the curtain and saying like, everything I'm saying has a certain amount of bullshit to it because I'm totally free to say it. And I'm not, in some like overtly oppressed culture. Like I have the freedom to say that. I mean that, that's exactly why privileged fucks like me, should feel obliged to whine and kick and scream till everybody has everything they need. I mean, it's just, it was the very beginning of that. Mm-hmm. I think. And I think that's why I like Anti-Manifesto. I mean, it's, people say that smells, bring back these visceral memories, and music in a lot of ways for us, it's just like, it's attached to our spiritual spine in a lot of ways of like, I remember exactly where I was when I first heard that song. I remember, how it made me feel, and that has never quite left me. And I think that all really, really started from that song, and it was the beginning, just like they said, it was the beginning of something. They started something more,
The line, I am so full of shit, is one of my all-time favorite propaganda lines.
Totally.
No matter what. And well, I when we were chatting privately, I often get the line like, I know you guys don't really like How to Clean Everything all that much. Which is not exactly true, because it's my 7th favorite record of all time, I'll give you a guess what the other 6 are. But that line, I am so full of shit, is essentially how I feel about my entire life. I have these like thoughts and ideas, and I do these things, but like I also have this like deep sense of insecurity that I'm actually just a total bullshitter, and I'm just making this up as I go along, just like every other basically moron on planet Earth. And it's just that I feel like it's something that I feel tremendously about myself. I'm so full of shit. That's how I feel every single day. So this line in that song is basically my entire life, and all of my insecurities boiled down into a single lyric in a single moment in a song that I heard when I was like in middle school. And it's like crazy how true it remains to this day.
I couldn't agree more, man. I feel like, and we were talking, privately beforehand, and just how much this podcast has meant to me. And you've turned me on to Chris's Patreon and just the stuff that he's shared there about this time. But I really feel like just the self-awareness of that has, I have always felt like an imposter, no matter where my life has gone. Even, when I had a band like this, where I was expressing these feelings that I had, I just, like I said, there was no internet. I didn't know that much stuff. He was, Chris was talking about all these like political events that I just felt like I didn't know enough about, like to try and say something specific about that wouldn't be countered in some way by somebody that knew way more than me. So I kind of turned more inward. I would do songs about my parents' alcoholism. I would do, when Matthew Shepard was murdered, that had a huge impact on me. It was stuff that that was from my local politics in a lot of ways, and you know, but at the same time feeling like as the band got more and more popular, you know, you have this feeling of like, am I so full of shit? Am I doing this for the right reasons? Am I so selfish that I want this big following because it makes me feel good? Or am I trying to reach out and really put my, you know, my money where my mouth is? And I would do stuff, you know, would raise money and I slept on the street with the homeless, but then at the same time is like, is this just some fucking, you know, thing that I'm doing because I feel like I'm trying to look like I mean what I say, or do I actually mean it? You know, am I the selfish motherfucker that can't get past his own fears and insecurities? And that has been pervasive through my whole life of this. Am I selfish? Do I really care? Yes, I do care. I know I do care. But what am I willing to do about it? Not much. Oh, really? You fucking selfish fuck. Like, you know, only so many. And it just, oh yeah, over and over and over again. And I'm telling you, that fucking little voice of Chris Hanna has never left me my whole life.
I love it. What an amazing encapsulation of Anti-Manifesto. Let's stick with How to Clean Everything. We've never done an Anti-Manifesto. Our first song, obviously, on How to Clean Everything is Anti-Manifesto. The original episodes that have covered Anti-Manifesto, we've done it a couple times now on the show. We did an April 15th episode with the actor Ryan Onan. We did episode 74 with Bob Nanna of Braid and Chris Fox of Boss's Daughter. Then the March 31st, 2023 episode with the German piano songwriter Uli Sailor. And then on April 29th, 2023, we covered the song again with Kristian Basaraba from the Rad Dads podcast. Steve, what are your thoughts on an Anti-Manifesto, just overall for a second here?
I mean, I like the song a lot. My favorite line from the song, if I had to pick one, it's "We strive for something more than a faded sticker on a skateboard." I feel like that one just hits. My favorite line off the top of my head is, "I am so full of shit, but I will remain until this self-awareness fades, until I defeat the purpose served by this soapbox that you made." So I love the closing line on this song where he kind of turns the mirror on himself to recognize his own hypocrisies and flaws and shortcomings. I just love that angle that Chris so often tends to use within his own songwriting. Because it reminds us all to be a little bit humble and to retain our humility. And no matter how often we may judge other folks, we're often, we often need to turn the camera on ourselves a little bit too. So those are my favorite lines from the song. Love it.
So we're going to go through two covers from listeners here. The first cover was in episode 74. So you may have heard this one before, but it's so wonderful and it was originally made for that episode by Chris Fox from the band Boss's Daughter. Boss's Daughter has a couple of great records out, and they are always seemingly on tour. So we're going to hear from Chris Fox and his cover of Anti-Manifesto. And then our second cover was submitted to us by a listener of the podcast named Brendan Kennedy. So we're going to kick it off here with Anti-Manifesto. Thank you so much to Chris Fox and Brendan Kennedy for their contributions. Here we go.
Dad's question, complacent, completing your tasks. No questions asked. Consider this critic a creature, just resting on laurels, completely invented. Word acrobatic, performed with both artists and nets. I'm so full of shit. But I will remain till this self-awareness fades, till I defeat the purpose of this soapbox that you made. That you made. Oppress perseverance, submission, self-doubt. Greeting a 26 us case of big mouth, the sum of our hearts. And I've never laughed harder, the song in our hearts. And I've never laughed harder, it don't really matter, 'cause nothing's ever felt as right as this. Dance and laugh and play, ignore the message we convey. It seems we're only here to entertain. A rebellion cut to fit. I refuse to be the soundtrack to it. While we entertain, we're still knee deep in shit. In shit. And we're so full of it.
Dance and laugh and play. Another message we convey. Seems I'm only here to entertain. A billion got to fit. Well, I refuse to be the soundtrack to it. We entertain, still we're still knee deep in shit. There's something wrong inside. Gonna play it safe, enjoy the ride. We run like this, we'll have something to confide. We stand for something more than a faded sticker on a skateboard. Rain on your parade, we're out the door. And I don't even carry fucking know. Witness this pair in a complex. Witness this pair, lethargic, unconscious, no grounds floating question, complacent, completing their tasks. No questions asked. Consider this critic a cretin, resting on laurels, completely invented, but acrobatics perform with both harness and net. And I'm so full of shit. Well, I will remain to myself when it's rains, till I defeat the purpose of this soapbox that you made. That you made.
Brain ink at 2-6, a bad case of big mouth, the song that I